Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Commodity Insights podcast with the crew at Farmers Trading Company. After another eventful week of commodity action here, I think we'll get started with the most interesting market out there, the cattle market. It gave us a glimpse of hope at the beginning of the week and the end of last week, and we thought maybe things were going to turn around and we were getting our footing here. And then after the last couple of trade sessions here, it's just been ugly. They just keep beating that up. Fears of bird flu, I guess, has kind of been the top story, and bird flu maybe being in hamburger. They're testing for that with the USDA is, I guess, in some different grocery stores. What are your thoughts there? We'll start with you, Vince, on that cattle market and where are we going and what's the outlook there?
I think so much of what you just said, the bird flu, worrying about if they keep testing, sooner or later they're going to find it and scare people and break off demand in here. But I think also on Tuesday morning, you had a nice rally, especially in those feeders. They took out Monday's highs by a little bit and failed, and it seemed like it just propelled some selling at that point, and there probably wasn't a lot of buying underneath the market. And what happened on Wednesday, I'm really not sure on that one. But with what you've seen those 2 days in a row, you just wonder if you can do some more damage here before you're done, and it could be more significant than most people think.
And over to you, Andrew, on those charts. It looks like we're still kind of holding above the April lows on a lot of them. Is that kind of going to be support, or what should you look for support on those?
Yeah, definitely look at those numbers as support. I'm going to take the other side of what Vince said. He sees maybe a little bit more downside to this thing, and while I can't argue with him, we'll see if the chart wants to hold us together a bit better than Vince is thinking. If you look at that April low to April high on like an August feeder chart, we came exactly down to a 62% retracement today. So if this is a healthy market, could we stop and turn higher or sideways to slightly higher from here? It's a possibility. June live cattle, you look at that same time frame, we did a close to a 75% retracement there. So we're certainly in areas that if it wanted to stop and be a bullish market, it could. But like Vince said, if they want to take things lower, they certainly can, just given what's going on in the world, especially with that bird flu starting to maybe be found a few more places than we originally thought we would.
And over to you, Vince. And with that cattle market and the board slipping as hard as it has here in the last couple of days, are there expectations that the cash will kind of start following that, or do you think the cash market will stay strong here despite all of this?
As you look at it, I'm not sure the trades looking at it are all that concerned about it. Cash side of thing, if you looked at Yankton's market this week, they were a couple bucks higher. But I think it's more psychology in here is what we're seeing in money flow, and the money flowing out of there. Psychology is bad, and we just have not got enough good news, maybe is the word we're looking for, to put underneath the market to get that buyer secured and say, I do want to buy because I think it's going higher. So I think you got to see where it's at. As Andrew noted, did we come to some good spots on charts to hold? Yes, we did. And if we hold there, that would be great. If we don't, Katie bar the door on what it may do at that point.
And then looking over at the hog market here too, it looked like it was maybe getting its footing here the last couple of days and finding some support. And then after today, it kind of just fell apart again. Any news that you heard on that hog market, Vince, or anything that could be driving that fundamentally, or is that more just technical buying and selling?
And this thing has been up and down, as everybody knows. You watch it the last month or so, some pretty good moves. I think part of it is cash being lower, but I think more of it is maybe just a weak technical side of things in here. That $100 level in that June to 99.50 really needs to hold. If we start closing much below 98, I think you got to be careful. If not, we can maybe have some interesting moves to the upside in here.
And what are your thoughts too on that, Andrew, that hog market?
Yeah, the hog market, I'm looking at a June contract here, and we had a low on this Wednesday trade of 100.32.5. And I think so long as you can stay with your closes north of $100, you should be okay. Could you drop down a little beyond that and still be an okay market? You certainly could. Look at your 100 and 200 period moving averages coming in at close to 98 and close to 96 as well. So if you drop this market down to $96, is that the end of the world? Probably not. If it does get down there, I would probably be buying some of those myself, because I think the numbers still are lining up for the hog market to stay okay here, but also keep in mind just how net long some of the fund traders are.
And then rolling on to the grain markets here, I think we'll get started with the wheat market. It's kind of had an exciting few days here, and then it kind of backed off. Um, it was a pretty favorable winter around here for guys growing wheat. Most guys were kind of gun shy because of the price, but if you do have some wheat out there, some wheat growing here, Vince, do you think maybe selling it here is a good idea, or what are your thoughts there?
That's a tough one if you're looking at new crop stuff. You got to do some break evens and see where you're at, but you can't be much above break even if you are. I would like to see that July KC or September maybe getting near $7. I'd feel better about it. Do I think we can? I think it's a possibility. Yes, we've had corrections the last couple of days, as you noted. I think a lot of that was nothing more than we ran out of steam. We did have some entities that had sell signals out there, which I think helped prompt that. But it's going to come down, I think, in this 610 to 620 region in that Kansas City July. We should start to find some decent support.
And Andrew, your thoughts with that wheat market?
Yeah, I think I would be just a touch more negative than Vince. Vince says 610 to 620. I'm going to say 6 to 610 would be an area to look at. So maybe just drop a little bit further on the chart. That would get you closer to, say, a 50% retracement from the March low to the April high. And that would get you closer to some of my moving averages that I've been looking at as well. So if we get close to $6, I think I'd be buying that July KC wheat. But as far as hedging crop that's in the ground right now, I'm not too excited about that unless you really need to get some risk off the table.
With the corn market, we tested some short-term highs here last week, and then it's kind of cooled off, and then it made a nice little run up today. Do you think that we have another chance to try those highs? And is there some room to run in this market, or is it just going to kind of continue sideways here?
Yeah, sideways with some volatility on that thing. Looking at like a July corn, you did have an outside side day higher. So that was a good looking move on the chart there. Whether or not that affects us a whole lot going forward, I guess we will see. But right now it looks like an okay market for us.
And Vince, any thoughts on that corn market as well?
No, you had to be impressed of what we did in here. Connor, you came down in that mid to low 440s in that July, hoping that might go a little bit deeper than that, but it did find support. Beans were probably part of that, I'm guessing, but just not a lot of selling when you got down there, even this morning when the wheat was 11, 12 lower, it couldn't push it. So you got to be impressed of what we do. And one would think that looking for any kind of breaks in here, if you want to re-own some, you probably have to look at that in that mid 440 region.
And at the beginning of the week, the soybean market kind of gave us a glimpse of hope that they might be climbing too here, and then it kind of fell apart. Is it going to be able to hold these short-term lows here that it had back in April, or what are your thoughts there, Vince?
Well, I think they can. I think when we look at the charts, whether it be the beans or corn and wheat, I think we have some significant lows in that we put in early in the year. And unless we get something else, I think they hold. If somebody wants to have re-ownership, or if you want to need to buy feed needs, those would be areas to come back and try to purchase whatever needs you think you need. What's the upside? Right now, I'm not sure it's great, but if the weather forecast doesn't change, we get into next week, then we may hear a little bit more about planning delays and where we're going to be at, and are we going to get all the acres planted? I think we're way ahead of ourselves when we start talking about that yet, but I think it's in the back of people's mind.
And over to you, Andrew, on that soybean market. What are your thoughts, or what are you seeing out there?
We're stuck in a wedge formation right now, and today we went right down to the bottom end of it, but I would think sideways trade at least till the middle of May, and then the market will have to make a decision, most likely based on some planting data. But I don't expect a too terribly wide trading range in the soybean market in the next 2 weeks or so.
And in that soybean market, we've heard about the Argentina soy workers kind of striking, and how has that played into this market here? Has that kind of been what some of this price action's been about here in the last few days, Vince, or do you think that's not affecting the U.S. market as much?
I think on Monday it did. Tuesday it did not. I think Tuesday you had end of month selling, kind of clean up some books. And then as you came back today, you have to wonder if that wasn't part of it again. How huge it'll be, I'm guessing, like everything else, depends on how long it's going to last. If it lasts a week, who cares? But if they start to extend it out, then it becomes some concerns.
Something to look at on the corn and soybeans. Most likely today, a lot of what we looked at is the US dollar is down 50 points for the day. So, and people were asking on the Wednesday trade, why are corn and beans doing what they're doing? I think you look at the US dollar being down 50 points like that. It's not going to increase our exports a whole lot, but at least it gives people a little more optimism towards that.
And Andrew, did you hear anything about the that I think what was the word Greeks or something, that aviation fuel deal in the corn market, and how those standards are going to be pretty tight for farmers to be able to classify ethanol as aviation clean fuel? Do you think?
Yeah, there was some regulation that came out about that late in the day on Tuesday, and in a nutshell, it sounds like it's next to impossible for a farmer and an ethanol plant combined to qualify for it. If my understanding of it was correct, corn had to be done with some variable rate fertilizer to show efficient nitrogen use. You had to combine that with, oh, what was it? The use of cover crops, and you also had to, oh, there was one more in there
No,
as well.
no-till was
So
the third thing in
the
there, Andrew.
no-till was the third one. Thank you, Connor. And so you're just about impossible for so many farmers out there to really qualify for this here. And so, yeah, technically you can, but they made it just so tough to get in there that I'm not sure if they're really going to do the corn farmers any favors by doing what they did so far.
Is that going to hurt this corn market long term, do you think, or very minimal impact?
Longer term, it could affect it, but right now I don't think it will a whole lot. We need to keep ethanol demand going just with how much corn ethanol consumes domestically. But right now, I don't think it changes the story that we have had recently.
And your thoughts on that, Vince?
I think you've got to, I think this is a place where we need to wake up our senators and congressmen, and they need to be out there pushing on whether it be the aviation fuel from corn or from soy. Either one, they're great products, but we want to put it down because it's not what those in charge want to have done in here. And when I look at our local people, and I think even in Iowa, they want to be careful of whose toes they step on because they don't want to lose the votes out of the big city, who are the green people, and then the realistic people on the other side of it. So I think it's going to be a tough road, but we really need to push those guys, I think, because it's a great avenue and a great point for use of our crops. We're getting better and having more all the time. We need something like that to sustain prices.
And overall, any closing thoughts on any of these commodity markets, Andrew?
If you look at a diesel market chart, we are continuing to test some of those bottom ends of it, especially in like a June heating oil. If you draw a trend line off of some of your most recent lows, we came right down to it today. We need to see a few more days of follow through, whether or not we break below it or not. But if a person still does need to get some fuel bought, look in this area. You probably have a decent opportunity to get something bought for a reasonable price.
And Vince, any thoughts on any of the markets or anything you've seen this week?
No, I think I would just add to what Andrew said at the end. If you got some fuel needs to be looking at, if you can get cash at $3 or under, especially 285 under, I don't think you're going to get hurt too bad by locking that in. There's probably more upside risk than there is downside. Otherwise, not a lot out there. I think that most guys are going to look at. We're trying to figure out direction, but I do think, as we noted before, all the grain markets got some pretty good support under them.
I think that's going to do it for this week's podcast. If we could be of any further assistance to you, give us a call at Farmers Trading Company. Our number is 605-996-6500, and check out the website farmerstradingco.com for more information.